Anyone have clutter issues in their life? Oh, really, David? Okay. Well, this talk is for you today. So, here's my little song. We're going to talk about small steps, tiny steps. I'm taking one small step instead of just looking at that big old mountain. Yeah. I'm taking one small step. It gets me closer to my goal. I'm taking one small step instead of just looking at the mountain. Then it just won't seem like I've got so far to go. So that's all I had to say today. Thanks so much for coming. That's all I had. Okay, here we go. I'm taking just one small step instead of looking at the mountain. Taking one small step gets me closer to my goal. I'm taking one small step instead of looking at the mountain. Then it won't seem like I've got so far to go. Far to go. I've got dreams that are filled with passion, and I've got fears that tend to pop up in the way, but I got a power that's deep inside my soul. When I look too far and I lose my way, always lets me know that I got, here's your part, one small step instead of looking at the mountain. Taking one small step gets me closer to my goal. I'm taking one small step instead of looking at the mountain. Then it won't seem like I've got so far to go now. And I got off the track and I couldn't find my way back. When I looked inside, the truth that could not be denied. I was making it harder than it had to be, just pushing and fighting until I found the key. Yeah, that I gotta take it one small step instead of looking at the mountain. Taking just one small step gets me closer to my goal. I'm taking one small step instead of looking at the mountain. Then it won't seem like I've got so far. I think it's time to blow. You expect this from me at this point, I think. I'm taking one small step. One small step. Oh, I'm taking one small step instead of looking at that mountain. Taking one small step gets me closer to my goal. I'm taking one small step instead of looking at the mountain. Then it won't seem like I've got so far to go. It won't seem like I've got so far to go. It won't seem like I've got so far to go. I'm taking just one step, one small step. I'm taking just one step, one small step. I'm taking just one step, one small step. I'm taking just one step now, now. Not looking at the mountain, just taking one small step. One step, one small step. One step, one small step. Oh yeah, thanks so much. So, one small step. That is what we are talking about today. And my question to you is this. So we are now at, what is the date? February 9th. So what, we're 6 weeks into this new year about, right? So my question to all of you is, think about your little New Year's goals and resolutions. And have you lost 10 pounds, started that new novel, cleared the clutter from that guest room that now you're going to make into your meditation room or your art room? Have you just done all of these things that you thought about at the beginning of the year? Yes, Karen, I have. Not so much. So the next question is, are you feeling a little guilty or ashamed or, oh my God, every year this happens. I say these things and it still doesn't happen. So if that is your case, then let me say, I am here with my magic wand to heal you from this. Because here's the deal. Here's the deal. What we tend to do with any kind of New Year's goals or resolutions or any of that stuff is we just make these big promises to ourselves. And the minute we slip up in any way, it just invites that inner critic to come in and say, now what is your, think about what is your favorite little inner critic saying. Some of them could be, actually, you should write them in the chat. Let's just do therapy in the chat today. Who do you think you are? Oh, come on, you've done this before. You never do this. What's your problem? You're going to try again. You're going to fail. You're too old. You're too fat. You're too skinny. You're too this. It's all the twos. You're too this to not be able to do it. And the key to all of this, and especially with getting into clutter clearing, which we'll talk about in a bit, is doing the smallest step that you can do that is going to bypass that inner critic. It's almost like you're going to give your inner critic a People magazine, give him a latte, take him to Starbucks, run over here, do what you need to do, and they won't even know that you did it. And that's the key to it. So for years in all of my workshops, this is pretty hysterical, for years in all of my workshops, I talked about the idea of micro movements. And Anne knows this all too well, because I would just, every single workshop, I'd be just, it's all about micro movements. And a micro movement is 30 seconds to 5 minutes. That you could do anything for 30 seconds to 5 minutes. But what's hysterical to me is I've been teaching this for years, and I rarely did it myself until this year, where I read this book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. I recommend it highly. Atomic Habits by James Clear. And, well, first of all, before I even jump into all the stuff I want to tell you about, I need to just preface this with one thing. So I have a song. I was going to end with this, but I'm not going to end with this song today. I have a song called Just Do It. So if you're a person who procrastinates, this is the song I want you to listen to. It's just this big rock out song. Just do it. Don't talk about it. But one of the lines in the chorus says, I'm going to give myself a gentle push. I'm going to start today. Notice that word. I'm going to give myself a gentle push. Now, one of my most favorite songs to sing, and one of my most popular songs, probably because we all need this message, including me, is I Will Be Gentle With Myself. And the bridge of that song says, I will only go as fast as the slowest part of me feels safe to go. Now, I didn't write that line. That's a line from my friend Robin Posen, who has all these affirmation cards and books all about, it's called For the Little Ones Inside. And so her whole business is about taking care of that little person inside of you and just being so gentle and kind to it. And when I was writing that little chant, I will be gentle with myself and gentle with myself, I looked up on my bulletin board and I had one of her little affirmation cards that said, I will only go as fast as the slowest part of me feels safe to go. And I went, oh, that's perfect for this song. And I called her up and said, you want to get co-writing credit on the song? And the reason why I make a big deal about that is because with anything that we do, that inner critic is just dying to just jump in and tell you all the reasons why you can't do it. I mean, that's why you have clutter in your life, because every time you start to do it, it's so overwhelming. And that critic comes in and all of a sudden you get tired and all of a sudden you need to go get something to eat and you're just like, ugh, I can't handle this. It's all of that stuff. It becomes fog and glue in your brain and you can't move on. But the more you can be just gentle and sweet with yourself and really embody those words, I will only go as fast as the slowest part of me feels safe to go. You know when you've procrastinated. I mean, if you really tell the truth to yourself, you know when you've just used the same excuses over and over and it's time to make a move. And that's when, that's when it's a stretch. And here's a reframe for you, which I love this reframe, is that if you're not hearing your inner critic, you're not stretching enough. So if you're not hearing it commenting about something, you could be kind of like in a, kind of a lull period. But as soon as you start to grow and stretch and move in any direction, your critic is just like, at attention, what can I say to make her, not do that? So that's the first part. It's just everything I say from here on out, it's starting on a bed of being sweet and kind to yourself. And when you're not being sweet and kind, to just stop and say, okay, maybe I'm not ready to do this. Okay? Got that foundation? Now I'll move on. So I have a secret shame in my life that I feel I've known you now long enough in these times of being with you. I can share this. And it's about my linen closet. It's about fitted sheets. Can I tell you my story? So for years and years and years, I have been this, I just need to tell you, I'm one of these sort of neurotically organized, clean, everything's in its place kind of person. David, I was talking to Jen this morning about how, like, when you moved into your new place, it's like within, a minute, all the boxes, everything was out of the boxes. I'm like that. It's like, I can't stand clutter. I can't stand things not being where they're supposed to be. But in my little linen closet, I would have these perfectly folded sheets. But every time I got to folding the fitted sheets, for some reason, I had a belief that I could not do it. Because every time I tried to do it, I would do all the little things that you put your hands here and you do this and then you fold this one over and you do this. And I would just get so frustrated. I'd go, I can't do it. Roll it up in a ball and stick it in there. David, do you want to show that? Can you show the picture of the bad? Yeah, so that's what it would be like. Here's the perfectly folded sheet and here's the one that, like, I can't deal. Just can't deal. Anyone could, thank you. That's all we need to see of that. Can anyone relate to this, or is it just my issue? So I don't know why, but what it is, it comes down to, again, that inner critic. Because it came down to every time I tried to do it, I would have this belief system come up that says, you're incapable, you can't do it. And you say that long enough to yourself, even with something as stupid as a fitted sheet, you just believe it. And you just get in a habit. And that becomes that habit of, I can't do fitted sheets, roll it up, stick it in there. And so I read this book, Atomic Habits, and he's talking about just do something for 2 minutes. Just try it. Just be kind with yourself. Just sit down. Give yourself 2 minutes. It was his whole thing. And I thought, it's the new year. I am going to tackle this. No one was home. I had a glass of wine. Hello. Came down, looked at the video, looked at a few videos and said, okay, you can do this. And I just went upstairs and I did this thing. And I'm telling you something, seeing the perfectly fitted sheet in my, wait, that's the bad. Where's it? There we go, on the top shelf. Thank you very much, people. And I was ecstatic that I actually did it. And the reason why I make a big deal about it is because it's not just the fitted sheet. It's how we do everything. You know that expression, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And I realized, how many places are there? What other places in my life am I doing that? Where I've just made a blanket statement, I've solidified it over and over and over with a, constantly saying, I can't do it. And what that made me do was say, well, what else is there? What else is there that I've done that with, that is just a stupid little thing, but I've just made this decision. And so now every time I've got to tell you, I don't know, now I'm telling you how neurotic I am. Every time I open up that closet and I look, I'm like, oh, it's all clean and pretty and stacked pretty. What can I tell you? But I had a class a while ago, a women's class that some of these lovely ladies, Julie and Anne and Carrie, were in, that I said to everybody, it was a 6-week class, I said, all right, I want everyone to look at some goal, like a fitted sheet, like something that's going on, and every week you report in about, where you're going with this goal and, what little micro movements, what little steps have you taken. And I just have to tell you about one of my favorite people that these gals know, Cindy. And Cindy wanted to take an aerobics class, a water aerobics, a water aqua class thing. And she just had all this resistance, and she needed to do it. She needed to do it for her health and her weight and whatever. And she would report into us every single week about, she's got this adorable little voice. And she would just say, well, this week I drove to the parking lot and I opened up the door and I put one foot down on the pavement. And then I went home. And she said it in such a way that everybody, you could see on the screen, everyone was beaming. Other people who could be judgmental could go, well, so what? But every week she'd say, and this week I drove to the parking lot, I put 2 feet down, and I actually went halfway to the door, and then I went home. And then she got the greatest laugh with, this week I put on my bathing suit underneath my clothes, and I drove to the parking lot, and I went home. And each week it would be this little thing. Then finally, when she got to the place where she opened up the door, and I think finally she put like 1 foot in the water or whatever, we were all ecstatic. But the way she did it was with such love for herself. Don't you get that, Anne? She was just like always like she would say it in a way that she was so proud of herself that she just drove to the parking lot. And that's really my point, is that we tend to look at these things we want to do and make them so big that it's a setup always for our critic to come in and say, oh, come on, you're not going to do that. I talk a lot about the concept of a tanker ship, that when a tanker ship wants to turn to the right, it can't just all of a sudden, the captain can't go like this. It has to know a mile out that it wants to make a 1 degree shift. So I always say with any talk you listen to or a workshop you go to or anything, give yourself a break in that a seed could get planted today or at that workshop you went to a month ago, that seed got planted, that 1 degree shift could have gotten planted, that your tanker ship could be moving off in that direction. You're not even aware of it because it's so gradual and slow, but it's moving. It's the same thing about, seeds in the winter. There's all this action happening underneath the soil. You might not see it. Actually, tonight I'm doing my singing thing at 6, and I've got Stogood on with me as my guest, and we wrote a song called Step Away from the Seed. And it's such a funny song because it's all about this woman who keeps wanting to, dig up the seed that she planted. And the cop comes and says, lady, you got to let it grow. Step away from the seed. And she's like, but I've got to see if it's moving. And that's what we do. We keep digging up the seed. Don't. Just know that you're moving in the direction you want, but you just got to get clear on, I think I want to just be a little healthier. Well, what does that look like? And be specific. I want to walk for 2 minutes to the mailbox. I love the idea that a big change starts with the most ridiculously small step. I love that word, ridiculously small, because it's so small you think you're embarrassed to tell anybody. But when you think about how much we paralyze ourselves with thinking it's got to be this big thing. I'll start my business when I have the perfect plan. I'll write that book when I have more time. Yeah, right. I'll get organized when my life is less chaotic. I'll clear the clutter when I've got this abundance of time. I'll clear the clutter when I really need to, or whatever it is. And I have to look at my own life and realize, I have 22 CDs out at this point. If I waited until I thought I was good, until I thought that song was ready or my voice was in the perfect place, I would have never put out one thing. And that's a big statement of just I wouldn't have ever done anything if I waited until I thought I was ready. I still feel like I'm just learning with every one. So, it's taking that thing of if you want to run a marathon, you start by putting your shoes by the front door and walking in the mailbox. If you, want to be a writer, write 1 sentence. Each victory, I love this line, each victory deposits more confidence in your emotional bank account. I'm going to say that line again. Each small victory is like a little ripple effect that moves into the next goal, but each victory deposits more confidence in your emotional bank account. And so it's giving yourself that break, for one thing, but making it so small that you can have a victory. That at the end of that time, so I have to start doing taxes. I hate doing taxes. It's like pulling my molars out without Novocaine. But if I take what we're talking about here and just say, I'm going to put on a song, some meditation song that lasts for 5 minutes, and that's all I'm going to do that day, is when the song is done, I'm done with my taxes for the day. I'll take one file that I have to, add up or something like that. And the main reason why I think this is so important, it's the same principle I talked about this morning at the first service that I did, is that I truly, truly believe that the more we handle our stuff, the more we're kind to ourselves, the more we love ourselves, we allow that kindness to spread to other people. We allow that compassion to spread to other people. We allow that presence to spread to other people. And, right now with the way that things are, with how crazy it is in the world and the division and all that kind of stuff, I just truly believe that this is the main principle I'm going to be talking about all year long, is just being kind to yourself, being gentle with yourself. What is it that you can do that strips away the garbage in your mind or your life or whatever, so that you show up as a light? You show up everywhere as a light. And I love this quote by Hafiz. Once a woman said to me, Hafiz, what is the sign of someone who knows God? I became very quiet and looked deep into her eyes and replied, my dear, they have dropped the knife. Someone who knows God has dropped the cruel knife that most so often they use upon their tender self and others. Take that in. That part of you that wants to knock you down for whatever. I did a thing this morning about looking in the mirror at yourself, and I would just remember my mother. I just think about how she taught me about self-care and self-love, that my mom worked at home. She had her own business. And every morning I would hear the IBM Selectric typewriter going at 7 o'clock in the morning. And I remember one day I was looking at her, she was in the bathroom and she was putting makeup on. And I came to her and I said, Mom, why would you be putting makeup on? No one's going to see you all day. You're just here working by yourself. You're not going to even see anybody. And she said, but every time I look in the mirror, I'm going to see myself. I see myself. And that's the most important person. And I went, wow, that's really what it is. So I want to read you one little thing here before I sing a little ending song. Sometimes I think that that love that we put out, that we're talking about, to ourselves, does it make a difference in the world to other people? What that small step you do, is it going to make a difference? One of the things I did at my last Sacred Sing last month, we did a benefit concert. Jamie Lula, Daniel Nahmod, and Gary Lynn Floyd and I came together on Zoom here, and we did a benefit concert for the people with fires in Los Angeles. Now, I'm from Los Angeles, so it was really affecting me, seeing all that devastation that happened. And I felt so overwhelmed with it all. It's just like, who do you donate to? And just the devastation was so overwhelming that I got kind of paralyzed by it. But then I heard of an organization that there are a few different organizations in Los Angeles, and one of them is called Sweet Relief. And what they do is, if you're a musician who lost an instrument in the fire, you can come to this organization and apply, and they'll give you a check for $1,000 to replace your instrument. And that was my tiny step. That felt something so tangible to me. It didn't feel this big, overwhelming, like, oh my God, how do I give money to the billions that they need? But to me, the idea that we raised money for someone to buy a new guitar if it was burned in the fire, or a keyboard or whatever, and that felt like something to do. And so, with this talk, with whatever issues are going on in your life, with clutter or whatever, just the smallest step, but it's the same thing in this bigger world of looking at the world and thinking, how can I make a difference with all the division? Well, it's smiling at the barista at Starbucks. It's letting someone cut in front of you on the freeway. But I found this little story I want to just share with you, and I just think this says it all. So one day, a terrible fire broke out in a forest, and suddenly everything was engulfed by the raging wildfire. All the animals, the frightened animals, fled their little homes and ran out of the forest. As they came to the edge of a stream, they stopped and looked back to watch the fire. They were feeling very discouraged and powerless as they all bemoaned the destruction of their homes. Each of them thought there was nothing that they could do about the fire but just sit there and watch it, except for one little animal, and that was a hummingbird. This particular hummingbird decided it would do something. It swooped into the stream and picked up a few little drops of water and went back into the forest and put them on the fire. Then it went back to the stream and did it again. It kept going back and back, over again, back and forth. All the other animals watched in disbelief. Some tried to discourage the hummingbird with comments like, well, don't bother, it's too much, and you're just too little. Your wings are going to burn. Your beak is too tiny. It's only a drop. You can't even put out this fire. What are you doing? And as the animals stood around, just, mocking this little bird's efforts, the hummingbird noticed how hopeless and forlorn they all looked. Then one of the animals shouted out and called out to the hummingbird in a mocking voice, "What do you think you are doing?" And the hummingbird, without wasting time or losing a beat, looked back and said, "I'm doing what I can." And that's really what it is. I'm doing what I can. So one of the things that I've been looking at in my life is, with all that's going on, what is mine to do? In my personal life, what is mine to do that's a 2-minute thing that I'm going to give myself every day? And I'll tell you, for me, interestingly enough, I usually put music at the end of my to-do list because I always have so many emails to return and all that stuff. But when I read Atomic Habits, and he was like, who are you? Claim what you are. If you're an artist, make art. If you're a singer, if you're this, or if you're a writer, whatever. And I thought, I'm going to give myself that gift this year. Every day, for 2 minutes, I'm going to do music before I do anything else. And I'll tell you, the first week of doing this was mind-blowing to me. I mean, music is my love. Music is what I love doing. I wrote like 5 chants in that time, just simply by sitting down and saying, okay, I'm open. And here's the thing, you could go longer than 2 minutes if you're into it, but the thing that you're doing is you're showing up to yourself. And that's the biggest thing that your critic is going to start to just back off a little bit, because if you show up every day at that same time, it becomes your new habit. So with that in mind, let me just end with this little chant. Thinking about what's going on in the world and just saying that we can change the world one heart at a time. We can change the world one heart at a time. I see you, I know you, you're a part of me. Can you sing that with me? We can change the world one heart at a time. We can change the world one heart at a time. I see you, I know you, 'cause you're a part of me. All right, let's claim it for ourselves and say, I can change the world one heart at a time. I that can change the world, one heart at a time. I see you, I know you, and you're a part of me. So let's do this. Everyone put your hands to the screen and say we. We can change the world. To everyone on this call today, one heart at a time. Look around the little gallery view. We can change this world, one little step at a time, one heart at a time. I see you, I see you, I know you, you're a part of me. So just think about in your mind right now, what is one small step you want to take this week in your life? The smallest step. Just think of one thing that's kind of in your heart and your mind right now. And right now, in this moment, I want you to commit to what you're going to do and really look at, did you make it too big? Just make it as small as possible. And I want you to think about what time you're going to do this, what day are you going to do this, and just do it with a gentle heart to yourself. One heart at a time, because we can change the world, but it starts with you and me. One little step at a time. Thanks for listening.